titled Highway 20 Gap. That's the name of our site. Talks briefly about the site, and on the first page I showed the new site elevation, and you can flip to the second page and you'll see what it looked like originally. So you can therefore see for yourself that there is a reduction in height. And also, as Mr. Lynch mentioned, we're eliminating the ability for a collocator at this site because of reducing the height as substantially as we have. I also have provided photo sims as Exhibit 1, and you can turn to that. These are color pictures of the site as it exists today, and you'll notice there's a red balloon that marks where we anticipate the tower to sit. And then on the next page, you'll see a photo sim or a simulation of what the tower will look like. And as you page through that, you will see that in some locations, such as on Exhibit number B, or photo number B, from the intersection of Highway 20 and Potter Valley, the site isn't visible at all from that distance. From other distances and other home sites that we visited in the area, you will just barely see the proposed tower. And it will be painted brown to blend in with the natural landscape in the area. I would also point out that in this area, this pole is not going to be the only man-made feature there. There are existing power poles, existing power lines. There are home sites, there are roads, there are outbuildings. So we feel that the addition of this one 45-foot tall pole in this area is not an impact to the area in regards to other type similar structures. And you can think of this as simply another power pole. And the area is used to having power poles, so it should fit in well with that existing design. There are some other exhibits within this first handout that I think are important for you to review. In discussing at the Planning Commission meeting alternative sites, the U.S. Cellular Tower on the Gutley Ranch property 4 miles away from this site was discussed as being a possible co-location site for EDGE to use rather than proposing this new site. EDGE has thoroughly and exhaustively looked at that tower site, and they cannot use it. U.S. Cellular operates at a different frequency than EDGE, which operates at 1900 megahertz. They are simply too far away. The Gutley Ranch Tower is simply too far away from the proposed coverage area to be of any significant value to EDGE. In other words, if EDGE went there tomorrow and installed antennas at that site, the unserved area would be virtually what it is today. So there's just absolutely no value in considering a co-location at the Gutley Ranch U.S. Cellular facility.
We have a question.
Yes.
Supervisor Delwin.
Thank you. Could you explain one more time why a co-location there would not provide the service?
Yes, I certainly can. I think I'll ask either Mr. Willie or Ms. Sullivan to come up and talk to you, speak to you more on a technical basis. That might be more beneficial.
They can do that when if they're going to come up later, that's fine. I just don't want to
That'd be fine. We'll
lose
just
the
defer that.
question in there
Okay.
somewhere.
In addition, there are maps and coverage maps that illustrate the unserved area, and that is located at in this same packet that you're looking at. There is some drive test data that's been included here. What drive test is, it's the ability of the carrier to go out in the field and actually determine what is available and what isn't available as far as coverage. And in that way, they can go back and design their sites and address those specific gaps in coverage. And when Mr. Willie or Ms. Sullivan comes up, they'll explain to you a little more about the drive test data that's been provided to you. Now, of course, the question is always asked of us when we present our tower applications, what other sites did you look at? In the other handout that I provided you, which is called Expanded Site Selection Overview, EDGE has put together a fairly extensive memo explaining and documenting their efforts to look for sites within the Highway 20 Potter Valley intersection area that would accommodate their needs, meet the coverage objective, and be the least intrusive site in the area. And if you look at this report, there are over 20 locations that they analyzed, including the U.S. Cellular Gutley Ranch Tower and some power poles in the area as well. So I firmly believe over the past 5 years that EDGE has done an exhaustive review of the area to look for a location that would provide this service in this coverage gap area and meet the county standards, the wireless guidelines that the Planning Commission has put in force for us to follow. Again, I just want to reinforce with you that this application you're seeing today is different from the first application that was denied. It's substantially better. It meets the needs of the community, provides the service in this area where there is a coverage gap. It limits the view impacts, provides additional screening and landscaping. In addition to that, the Planning Commission voted or had a motion before it to approve this application. And one of the planning commissioners cited safety as a reason that this site is needed. And I think that's really important for the board to consider this afternoon. Wireless technology, the ability to use cell phones in remote areas is very important. And as you have seen, there have been situations where not being able to access the E911 system can be very problematic. So safety is a big concern, I believe. Also, during the Planning Commission hearing in January, there were two people that spoke in support of the application, and you can find their comments in the minutes of the hearing. So I think that, again, demonstrates that this site is substantially better. It's got more support than the first application, and we believe that today the board can support our appeal and approve this use permit application subject to the conditions set forth. And I'll turn it over to Karen.
My name is Karen Sullivan. I'm the ARC engineer for Edge Wireless. The reason that we can't co-locate on the US Cellular Tower is because they're operating at a different frequency band than we are. They operate at 850. Their signal travels further before it degrades, and that's just a function of which part of the spectrum you're in. We're at 1900, and the signal will not propagate far enough into covering this gap. There's a specific gap here. If you drive down Highway 20 and you have our service, you know that you'll drop the call. There is just no coverage there. And at that location, it will not fill in the gap. So while it would provide coverage in that area, it will not fill in the hole that we're trying to fill. And that's mostly a function of the frequency that they're on and the frequency that we're on. Do you have any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So is that the case, regardless of where you are, you have to have more towers to broadcast your signal because it's not as strong? I'm
I
just a
would
layman's
say
interpretation here.
If you look at 850, which is the old cellular band, the first two carriers that came out were at 850, and you look at the PCS band, which is where we are at 1900, yes, there's, some people say it's up to 4 to 1, but there's definitely a need for more towers. If you had just a flat piece of land, there would be a need for more towers at that higher frequency band than there would be for the lower one. And it's just a function of the way that the system works.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, another thing that we wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure, do they have the maps for that?
Yes.
We have done drive testing out there, which clearly shows the gap. And what we do is we have equipment that will scan our entire band. We'll take a measurement of the signal strength. And we drove the area, and we basically do a cutoff of what's the minimal signal strength that we could actually get a call up. So I think that you have that drive test data, which is probably a bunch of dots and shows the white gap where we've driven out there and proven that we don't have the coverage out there.
Okay. Any questions? You still have quite a bit of time remaining.